I'm ranaal-falaki.
I'm Pavel.
And welcome to
the Nail It podcast.
This is your place to lead better, live fully, and laugh more. It's your blueprint to optimal performance. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Nail It podcast, your place to
lead better, live fully, laugh more.
You are getting much better
I
at
know.
that.
I know. It's like I've done it a few times.
Who'd have guessed? And how are we this fine evening?
Oh, we're good, thank you. We're good. Do you know what? Last week, we had a week off from the kids. The chance to reconnect with the wife. It was quite nice, actually.
I'm not going to ask you anymore because it feels like it could get to TMI.
No, nothing like that. But I say that we did go watch Wuthering Heights. That was quite fun.
I've heard that's an amazing film, actually.
It was, yeah. Going to the cinema again. I'm dating after 8 years of kids. It's great.
Do you know what? I think that's a great way to keep a relationship alive.
It was, you know, it actually was. It actually was. You don't realize how much you don't talk.
Absolutely. What becomes, you get involved in the day-to-day, the hassles, the stresses, the kids, and you kind of forget that you fell in love with this person. They're amazing. Yeah. I actually date my children.
Yeah. Do you know what? The funny thing is, today I picked my boy up 45 minutes before my girl, and it's such a nice time just to be able to speak to one of them, you know, and just have a chat.
Wait till they're teenagers, trying to get blood out of a stone. But anyway,
yeah.
Good luck with that. So we have an amazing guest today, Bav.
We do. We've got Anna Roberts. Anna Roberts is one of the directors of My Smile Media, which is a marketing company. She's a previous brand manager, a marketing manager for Align UK, an education and event manager for Henry Schein. She doesn't look old enough to have all these hats, but welcome, Anna.
Hi, Bav. Hi, Rana.
It's so good to have you. It's such a pleasure for you to join us. So we're going to go straight in with our opening question because it's of course this wonderful platform. What is your favorite quote and why?
Well, I'm going to keep it a little bit simple, actually, but it's one that I feel always resonates with me, especially as somebody in marketing and in brand, and that is ignore the noise, watch the movements that matter.
I love that. Say it again.
Ignore the noise, watch the movements that matter.
Wow. And you know what? For me, what that spells out is thinking of all of those people on Instagram who are maybe looking for their likes. They're not really tracking data, looking at the views, but it doesn't necessarily translate to results as well. And part of that becomes the noise, or it's like you're looking at a shop window instead of realizing that actually that's not all that counts. Watch the movement, like you said.
Yeah,
it's all about mindset as well, isn't it? It's you sort of have a filter in your brain when you fixate on something. You don't realize how much input you're getting all day, every day. And then once you have something in your mind, it's a bit like when you, I don't know, want to buy a car and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. You think you've always seen that. It's just that you've not been acutely conscious to it.
Yeah. And it's I think you can apply it in so many different ways in your business and in personal life as well. But as somebody that's kind of in business and brand and marketing, I mean, I constantly look for those movements and I'm looking for how it's going to guide me and where my attention should go, where my interest should go. And I think more often than not, it sits for me outside of our own industry, I have to say, because I think if we really want to understand how many things work, especially in that kind of marketing area and in leadership, I think we should look at outside of our industry and see how that has been built, how it's performing, how things are optimized. And I think look beyond our immediate world.
Who said that?
Really what that's about.
Is that an original quote or is that?
I have no idea where it come from. I saw it on Instagram. It wasn't kind of coined.
And you weren't ignoring the noise then.
I wish it was somebody that was like famous or something, but actually it was just out there, and it probably has been coined by someone that is, you know, a professor or an academic. But I just thought to myself, no, you've really got to be disciplined to just block that noise out and just watch where things are shifting. Keep asking why. Be relentlessly curious and kind of see where things are shifting and the significance behind it. And I think for me, that's what that statement kind of, you know, for how I interpret it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I love that. So you mentioned brand. right? And you mentioned results, and obviously this is something that you focus on so much, is again about the depth. It's not about if I was thinking of a person, it's not about the colors and the clothes you wear. It's what's inside and how that can come through. And obviously you carry that through to how can people market themselves, be that in their messages, in their emails, on their social media, to really allow themselves to shine through. And I love it when you and I have had discussions offline, you use this term vanilla marketing and how that just isn't going to work anymore. So tell us, what is vanilla marketing?
Well, I think vanilla marketing is essentially things that are very generic. They have no personality, they don't have any identity, and it's just a sea of the same. And I think in dentistry, we've been stuck in a bit of an echo chamber for a very long time. And it's a phrase I use pretty much throughout most conversations that I have. I use this term around this echo chamber that we're in. And essentially, it's just everything is looking very generic, a sea of the same. And I think it's easy for the industry and for business owners to get into that situation because most practices do the same thing, right? Most practices offer, unless you're doing something really pioneering or something that's very unique and specialist, most of the practices out there are doing very similar treatments. And I try and take a step back and think, as a consumer looking in, because they are consumers before they become your patients at the end of the day, how are they seeing it? And if they can't differentiate and they see no personality and no identity and they don't see anything wedded to a core brand and an essence and a DNA, that consumer's going to really struggle to pick someone. And they'll end up picking the someone who's figured that out, who has gone, I'm not doing vanilla. I'm going to create something that stands for substance, for a purpose, something beyond what I do and how I do it, but why I do it. And that is how you kind of move away from the more generic vanilla beige kind of cookie cut marketing and into creating an identity, a brand, and then showing up in your marketing, your online magazine, and all those different channels in a way that is not just authentic to you, but connected to that why. And that's really where I spend a lot of my time understanding that. So for me, vanilla is just everything looking the same. And I've audited so many brands and websites and a lot of marketing performance assets, and I could literally take a logo off one, put it on another, and no one would notice any different because the wording, the content, the way things are all so similar. And it's a challenge for the industry. How do we stand out, especially in a more competitive environment? And it's not slowing down. It's getting even more condensed with competition. Expectation from our patients, from the consumers, is going up. And it's going to be, I think, the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a massive change in our industry. AI is on our heels, hot on our heels on everything, especially in the way people search and look for products and services, and that includes in dentistry what shows up. But also we're going through a generational shift. We're constantly going through a generational shift, but we are going to go through a very significant one in the next 10 years. And the new generation that's coming through will not tolerate vanilla. They will throw it away. And that could be a real risk for some of the practices that, may not realize that they're in that kind of sea of the same, but they're not quite feeling really the pain from it yet. The idea is not to feel the pain. The idea is to respond to that and put those preventative measures in to make sure you don't end up being kind of left behind.
I guess this does not just on a practice level. This would be on a personal and an individual level, an associate or as a nurse or a hygienist or a therapist. When you want yourself to stand out above the crowd, especially when you're looking for jobs or roles and things. So where would one start with this? What would you suggest?
For personal brands, which is
Mm,
something we are seeing far more of, and these are things, by the way, that if I look outside of our industry, has been going on for a very, very long time. But it has started to become a bit of a, dare I say, a trend, and more the super associates are taking matters into their own hands,
mm,
and they're deciding their future, their destiny. And they've decided that they are going to put themselves out there, create an identity, which is theirs, but create their personal brand, build assets around them, and actually put themselves out there and what they stand for, why they do what they do, so they can become essentially this person that consumers are attracted to. So then they build their own kind of personal wealth as an
yeah.
individual, And then other practices are going to want to buy into that, because I think as a practice owner, if you have an associate that is willing to do the work and the effort it requires to bring patients in, that's actually somebody that really
Yeah,
understands the space
yeah,
versus someone that says, can you give me my list?
yeah, yeah.
It's a
Um,
different mindset completely. And this new generation, you're right, Bev, have cottoned onto that. I think the new generation coming through as well of clinicians will also probably behave in a very similar way.
Yeah,
I think they're going to settle for mediocre. That's what I'm saying.
I certainly have a lot of associates that we work with in needing the empowerment to realize that they are an asset to a practice,
mm,
and they need to start understanding that they are actually a business in themselves, and they have the ability to negotiate that, but they do have to be willing to do the work as well, not just sit there and expect their list to be full. So they do need to be able to take their own responsibility, but at the same time, they need to find themselves in the right environment or create the right environment so they are suitably rewarded for it as well.
I think that's the key. What you said is create that environment, because we work with a lot of different dentists, especially in the academies that myself and Ren are teaching, and we coach and mentor people. And the first step is that they're acquiring skills, they're acquiring new skills, they're doing these courses, they're investing in themselves. And I think again, the younger generations are much more switched on to that, and like I say, standing out in the crowd. But so, and do you help individuals as well as practices, or what is how does your
Yeah.
marketing work?
Yeah, I really get approached by practices and individuals that are seeking to do things very differently, to break away from that kind of vanilla, as I call it,
Mm,
marketing, and want to see a fresh perspective. And I think being in kind of the underbelly, the engine rooms of these corporates for the majority of my career, I've seen the investment into consumer marketing at Align. I've seen how these big corporates have functioned and how much they spend in getting their brands and getting their products and their services out there. And obviously spending time on the road as well. When I was at Align, I spent a good year and a half in the field. It all started just to slot into space, like literally slot into those spaces for me. Like, okay, I realize what one of the biggest challenges is. It's like, how do we stand out in this really crowded market? So it definitely has taught me quite a lot in terms of where those challenges are, and these people come to me to try and seek a wider perspective, but I think a perspective that's actually focusing on the consumer brain, on psychology, emotional intelligence. How can we apply emotion-led marketing to our practice? Because that we know is what actually sways decisions and purchasing decisions in our subconscious. We know 95% of purchasing actually decisions are made in the subconscious, is driven by emotion, not logic. So they come to me, I think, probably not knowing that, but knowing that they need to understand that better.
And so what is your process?
Usually I will go through a bit of an audit because I always like to see what's been done before, if anything. So I lift the rock up and I kind of like, okay, let's have a look underneath. If there's nothing there, or if there's something there, depending on what to work with, then we may have to start from like the bare basics from the beginning. Like, well, why now? What's the trigger? What are you trying to achieve? So those really strategic questions that need to be answered, but I don't want to hear about what or how you do it. I know that I've been in industry for long enough to know what you do and how you do it. Unless you're doing something completely, you know, remarkable. Actually, it's starting with, let's put all the clinical to a side. Let's take the doctor hat off for a second and let's just be you and understand, why are you even in this game?
so
What's
again,
the end goal?
it's about understanding yourself first.
Yeah, 100%. And I need to understand the essence of that in order for them to understand and to create a strategy, a brand,
Mm,
marketing, performance, optimizing that. I need to understand all of that. And I think a lot of the time nobody does the deep dive to really get to the kind of that root.
yeah.
It's very much surface level, and a lot of marketing becomes transactional. And the questions right at the beginning, aren't there. You just need to ask why over again. And eventually it's like an onion, you just peel it back until you get to, okay, that's your why. But until you know that, it's very hard for people to be able to market a practice or a person, because you're going on generic information. And that is something that is only going to create generic marketing. It's not really going to talk to anyone.
very often the first when you see marketing it, it's the what, isn't it? It's like, what do you want to achieve, not the
Mm.
why.
Why?
I remember like years ago, well, many times where I've just tried to get other people to say take over my social media, and then I've almost been mortified and put my hands in my head, and I'm so embarrassed, thinking, but that's not my voice, and those aren't my images, and
Mm.
that isn't what I really want to say deeper down. I'm a bit more like a bit more hard hitting, and I think, and we've talked a lot about AI in previous episodes as well. There is this increasing element of mistrust as well. Actually, what's true, what's manufactured, even videos, it
Mm.
may or may not be real. The consumer is that much more suspicious, and at the same time, there is so much available. So how do you stand out from the crowd? I mean, that's the whole integrity pillar, isn't it? It's stand out
It
from
is.
the crowd.
But you raised such a good point, Rana, on that AI not trusting.
Mm.
For the best part of how long has TV been around? 120 years, maybe, roughly, maybe 130 years. Not massively long in the whole history of the world. It's very early technology, but we have been conditioned to believe when we see something on a screen on a TV, it must be true because we think, well, the people behind that have done their due diligence and they won't lie to us. We live in a very different world now with AI, but what's happening now is because of AI is being influenced in our marketing and what we're seeing, like you say, Rana, we don't know what's true. And actually, there is a prediction that in the next up to 5 years' time, max 5 years, we won't believe even what we're seeing. We are going to question everything, which is going to make things a lot harder for people to believe you. And the fact that a lot of consumers make decisions over emotions and what they see and what's visible, that's going to be something we're going to have to navigate at some point because people are going to say, is this real? Isn't it real? How are they going to know? So that touch point to a person is so important. And that's what dentists do so well. They're there at the front line. And you cannot take away that human aspect because I think others that have just got e-commerce brands, etc., they might find a bit of a struggle at some point because people are just going to go, well, I don't even know if that's real or not anymore because everything is fake.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all very well saying this is what you stand for.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's very different to, I mean, I had a meeting just the other week with a big dental group. So we work with a few of them and just actually just saying, well, what's your culture? They kept telling me things that they do. And it's like, no, 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 no. What is your culture? What words, like, what do you stand for? Like, what is the thread? What is the life force? What's the blood supply? What is it that goes through that you want to spread through it resonates from you outwards? And I imagine then that's a lot of the work you have to do, right? Because be it as someone who's self-employed on their own, be it somebody who has their own small business, at the end of the day, yes, you've got to know the why, but then you also need to have the leadership skills to allow it to stem from you outwards, right?
Yeah. And I think this is going back to that emotional led focus and bringing that culture through. You want to create a sense of belonging, in your team, but also you want people to have that value alignment with you as well. But if you don't know what you stand for and what that culture is, what that DNA is, you are going to find it all you have is what and how. And that isn't going to be enough. It's just, it never was enough, but we got away with it. Dentistry got away with it for some time. They can't now, and I'm seeing the shift happening right before my eyes. Like people are like, we can't do that because this generational shift that's happening where boomers and Gen X, I mean boomers in the next 10, 15 years, unfortunately it's life. They're not going to be here. Not many of them will be here left. We only have to look at our own parents and grandparents to see that is the cycle of life. It's you have to stare it cold in the face, but it's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years. And then Gen X will replace them and be the boomers. And then millennials, that's us, and Gen X or early Gen X, they're going to kind of take over. They're the highest, I think it's about 21% of the population of millennials. There's a bit of a boom back in the 80s, and we actually take up the most population of the country. And then you've got your Gen Zs and your Gen X. Now, there's this shift that's going to happen, and Gen Z are actually about 28, 29 now. They're about to turn 30, which is incredible. But that means they're going to enter and they already have, but they're going to really enter into the mainstream of spending and making decisions and buying houses and getting into their career and spending money. But the way they spend their money is very different to how I do it, very different to how Gen X do it, and the boomers have done it. So if we're not aware of that generational shift and actually what their value alignments is and what their purposes are and those demographics and all those things, we're going to really struggle to create any sort of message to resonate with them. They're just going to see us as, a commodity. They'll just commoditize us. You're all in one bucket. You don't stand out.
So how do they spend differently?
How do they spend differently?
Mm.
So when you're talking about Gen Z or
Mm.
when you're talking about these profiles, usually Gen Z and millennials are very similar. To say very similar, they have some similar commonalities. It just depends on when they're born. But they
Yeah.
are buying confidence, control, reassurance, aspiration. They're looking at it from like a reaching their true potential, like self-actualization, which is obviously part of Maslow's law. If you know it, you know it well. That is what they're heading towards, and they really focus very much on the top of that pyramid. So they're not buying into the what and the how and all those things. They actually be like, well, what can it give me? How can it make me the best version of myself? And I'm going for this, I'm going for that. It's a bit like that hero journey, and you've got to come on board with them. So they're spending money on status and, health and well-being, on lifestyle. There's been such a surge in that. You only have to look at the car park of a David Lloyd to see the shift. It's full. So these are the things. This is why I say watch the movements, because people are investing into this. And this is where dentistry can really play a role in what you do. It's not just your standard general dentistry and hygiene, and just all of that is great, but actually there's so much more that you can give a person. You can change their life forever. And I just don't think that is the story that's being told, but that is the story at the end of
Yeah.
the day, and what these, Gen X millennials and these younger generations are going to expect to see. And if they don't see that hero story, if they don't see practices and personal brand storytelling in the right way, where they're leveraging the confidence or, the control, the reassurance, the aspirational side, then that's just gonna not, it's not gonna land with that audience, because that's what they're expecting. That's what they want to see from you. So, you want to build communities, not patients.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like, so it becomes the benefit led, doesn't it? It's a case of, it's not about I'm going to do some composite bonding for you. No, it's the story. It's like, I'm going to give you back your smile. I mean, for
Yeah.
me as a specialist, I always bring it back down to the quality of life. You can smile comfortably, you can eat comfortably, you feel healthy, all of these things, as opposed to being embarrassed, always having soft food, always having to think how long you need to spend in the bathroom, and because it's just constantly there versus being able to let it go. And that's the story you're effectively selling, and you do that, and your conversion rate is much higher. Call it ethical selling, call it serving, call it whatever you like. Unfortunately, we are in even though we're providing healthcare, it still costs money. It's our livelihood, but it's also businesses, and we employ people, and we want to provide the best possible care. So there is ultimately a transaction involved there, but it's about, this is how I'm really serving you.
Yeah. How it's going to make
Right. It's not what I'm doing, it's
it's
why
how
I'm
it's going to
doing
make
it.
you feel, how it's going to make them feel, right? That's what it comes down to.
People by
And
feelings, right?
we've seen that the transition from when I graduated 20 odd years ago, is that people, it was sort of drill and fill, and we've moved through that to, to actual well-being and making people feel and look healthier. And people want this cosmetic, it was back at the Hollywood smile, but I think we've even gone past the Hollywood smile. Right? No one wants or people still do from Turkey and places like that, but people still want that white look of, perfect look. And I actually think Princess Kate has probably got the best teeth, the most natural looking, good, healthy set of teeth. And people want that, and people desire that, and people are looking for people that can make them feel like that.
Because when they look at those sorts of people within our society that tick all those boxes, they want to buy into that. And it's actually what they're doing is they're buying into a version of themselves that they want to step into. It just doesn't actually exist yet. I think that can be a really challenging thing in our industry, that we're selling something in some ways that doesn't exist yet. We're selling the future version of someone, and we're trying to get them to buy into, this is what you'll become, this is what you'll be able to do. But
Yeah.
the most important thing is to listen to patients and say, well, why now? Why are you doing this? I do find a lot of the questions when I do work with individuals and practices, the questions they're asking their patients, there's nothing emotional in there. Again, like Rana was, saying, it can be very transactional. They just, fill the form in. And I know that it's a challenge. Things are a bit on a conveyor belt sometimes, and you have such a lot of time restraints, but just actually pivoting to a more emotionally led questions, like what's going on and in your life and what's led you up until this point, and how does your smile, how's it currently making you feel, and what are you doing, generally, are you happy being in a social area, like you're leaning into it, and people, if you ask the right questions, eventually, depending on the person in front of you, you have to be very much kind of emotional chameleon in the moment with that person. But that comes down to your own EQ, right? How high is it? Because if it's high, you will see the emotional leakage, you will spot the signs, you'll know when to pause, when to lean back. That's where you can really go, okay, have I got introvert here, I've got extrovert, have I got a mix, what have I got?
Yeah.
And then you can ask the questions, and eventually something will click, and they'll be able to open up and tell you their why. Once you know their why, the rest really is quite simple, because then you know what their mission is and where they want to go in life. You're just going to be, it's their story, they're the hero. You're just going to be their co-pilot. And you're going to say, we're going to do this together.
Knowing how to communicate to people as well, and how people like to be taught, is knowing their personality type. But go back to your My Smile Media. Do you what do you offer? Do you offer is there some sort of visual thing? Do you offer like smile simulations and things like that, or?
So we're obviously doing marketing. We provide all a range of marketing, essentially,
Right.
everything from organic to paid. So
Okay.
we
Right.
pretty much provide a full house of marketing. So every practice will need, I always call it 50-50 strategy. 50% of that budget goes into paid, 50% goes into organic. So you're covering both sides, because you need a balanced marketing mix and a plan and a strategy, and it does touch both organic and paid. And that's pretty much what we focus on. But we like to take a step back and understand the person, the brand, and the practice, and then we can make a recommendation based on what those goals are. But also we do quite a level of auditing to understand what have you done before, so we can see what's been tested and tried. But then we like to come in and kind of sprinkle a bit of fairy dust over, which is essentially that coming from that emotional led marketing, performance led marketing. That's important.
It's not just for Invisalign, it's for
No,
all sorts. Okay.
anything and everything. I mean, general dentistry, specialist dentistry, everyday dentistry, and then obviously your cosmetics, veneers, Invisalign. To be honest, it's all, the principle is the same.
Yeah.
You just have to listen to the patient, or understand, not so much the patient, but understand the consumer that you want to go after. It's really important to know, right, I'm going to go all in on, I want 25 to 45, which is for instance, the perfect range of age for Invisalign specifically. It's what line base it on. 25 to 45 is that sweet spot. You have 3 different generations in there. You have Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X, which means you've got 3 different profiles to understand. Like, who are we going after? You really have to ask these questions, because if you don't understand the neuro sovereignty that lives in their head, then you're really going to struggle to get your message in there, because it's not going to land with any impact.
But it's then knowing what your message is, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're not aligned, when you don't have an alignment, right? When you're not aligned and you're therefore trying to sell something that you don't believe in, or something that isn't quite you, it shows up. It shows up energetically, and it doesn't work. You'll fail. So there are some people though who would love, they obviously don't know how to get themselves across, if we're sticking to social media at this point, don't know how to kind of get themselves across, or suffer from imposter syndrome, or are too shy, or don't want to do fun crazy things, even though they might be this really fun crazy person, but they don't want to do that on social media, because then there's this permanent imprint that they feel embarrassed, thinking, well, that's not quite the professional persona, at which point then we're grating against the authenticity piece in Nail It as well. So what do you say to these people? How do you help bring them out of themselves?
I think you have to understand the person first and get as close to them as possible, what they're comfortable with, what they're not. But if they have a goal and they want to go for it, then there are some personal sacrifices that you do have to make. Like, well, I need to do, I don't mean turning up on screen and doing something funny. You've got to understand the parameters and kind of what they're going to be comfortable in. Plus, like you say, you don't want to create like this avatar or this type of person that actually is completely different to how they are behind closed doors. You have to be yourself. So it's understanding what they're comfortable with, what they're not, but also if they want to, go in that direction and they want to create their own personal brand, or the practice wants to create something like this, then there are certain things, especially when it comes down to who their target audience is, that they will need to do. You need it. It's a chicken and egg situation. You have to just realize that, okay, I may need to change somewhat, but I'm going to do it in a way that is comfortable, that's phased, baby steps. You want to force something on anybody. It's got to feel right, because if it doesn't feel right, people won't behave on camera and they won't bring out that essence, that brand, that DNA, that performance that that will work. It will just feel contrived. And you know what? Consumers, we as humans, we know when something is a lie or it's not quite right. We sniff it out. Our brain is wired to sniff it out. So we must make sure, because if we try and be false or create an alter ego that doesn't exist, like our brains know straight away, like this isn't that person. We're very good at getting to the truth.
Yeah, but sometimes people just lack confidence, right? So they want to bring themselves across, but they don't have the speaking skills, or they don't have the camera skills, or they don't have the confidence. I mean, I was going to say, Bav, like those are the kind of people we coach ultimately.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just need the coaching to develop the confidence to stand in who they are and be happy to show that to the world. But then I don't know, you must have seen it. Well, Bav probably hasn't, but have you seen these Instagram ads where I've seen like dental practices marketing themselves around like sexy male dentists? Have you seen those?
I've seen so much.
Seen them? Like,
It's not on my algorithm. I don't
I
know.
don't know whether they were
That's
American ones, because they do have some American
algorithm.
followers, but kind of like where they're like this really like these this guy in scrubs, so you can see the muscles bulging underneath them and looking like really smoldering, like sexy gods or something. And even and it's more the men than the women actually marketing that way. And then again, just, and of course people buy from humor, right? So they think, oh, that looks like a really fun practice, because they show people having a giggle and a load of fun. But then that person, you're then bought into that. And then what happens when you go to the practice? And no one makes you laugh and no one welcomes you, and it's a really stressful environment. And guess what? The guy with the muscles was actually
I think they call that catfishing,
an AI.
Catfishing, right?
That's catfish. That's like, you don't look like your profile picture. What is going on?
No. Walk out. Patient walks out.
It's like, I came for that specific reason, and they're not
sign
there.
up for this.
So much of this is about the follow through. I mean, look, I remember when I was doing my my speaker training, and I was with my mentor, and I would put in like the odd little kind of sarcastic, dry joke. She was like, "Oh no, don't do that, you can't do that, don't do that." And I had to kind of stick to the system at the time. I mean, and now I'm a mentor myself, and now it's kind of like, but I do that. I do. I am a little bit sometimes risque, and I am a little bit sarcastic, and I am a bit jokey, and I do have high energy, and I can totally match someone. I can start off really high, and I can completely come back down to their energy, so I don't end up like this really, really super ridiculously irritating person. But you've got to be able to bring your way. I mean, people know if they come to one of my events, I'm gonna challenge them. I'm gonna push them, but I'm still gonna have a smile on my face, and I'm gonna make them smile too. That's part of my brand, if you like, because that's me, right?
And people buy people.
Right.
And that's just how we work, and that's
even sexy ones with big biceps,
even sexy ones, as long as when you turn up that it is actually what you're getting.
I rely more on humor. I think humor breaks a lot of barriers, right?
That's and you know what?
Maybe that's because you haven't got the biceps.
Well,
Baba's actually touched on something really important there in terms of that, because what you're saying there of humor is, if you look across pretty much all advertising and marketing, the ones that actually work the best are the ones that make people laugh.
Yeah,
because we're releasing dose, so why wouldn't we want more of it? Dopamine, endorphins, give me it all. I need it. I want to feel happy. So actually, when it comes to your marketing, releasing those happy hormones, those toxins in the body. There's good ones. Is that's what you want. You want the good
Yeah,
chemicals going around in your body. And that's what marketing has always been put on this planet to do, is make people feel something. And you
yeah,
know what? Laughing is great. And then obviously that sadness and emotional stuff that triggers. We're actually, what we're talking about here actually it's psychology. It's pure psychology, but
yeah,
also it's mastering storytelling and how the brain remembers. And no
yeah,
one remembers you if your
mm,
marketing has no story. It's
yeah,
just end of. So we need to get better at storytelling and actually creating that laughter, creating that sadness, pull people in,
mm,
like asking that patient, like if they're really introverted and they're not coming out, or you're trying to get, or I'm working with a personal brand or a practice, I actually say, first thing I say is, tell me your story. How did
yeah,
it begin?
yeah,
Go back. And they're just like, why on earth is this person asking me this question?
yeah,
But it makes sense in the end, because then I'm like, okay, now I know you.
yeah,
I know why you've been put on this planet and why you've chosen dentistry and what you want to achieve in this life. I know your purpose. And I know, because I always say the practices, the owners, their own personal purpose is attached to that business. Always is, like why they even founded it in the first place.
yeah,
They're detracting the two is not impossible unless it's a Bupa or a Portman and they've just been, taken
Mm.
over with a corporate, and there's just like this, system put in place. Private practices that are owned, their practice is an extension of them.
sometimes people don't even realize it themselves.
No,
They set it up to make a living, and yeah, it's just to make money, but it's not. There's always a purpose. There's
there is.
always a feel, and I totally agree. Yeah, it's how you make people feel, and people remember that.
Yeah,
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 I remember when I started my practice, it was this, I just had these standards and I wanted to be the one that people referred to by name, not just some bog standard specialist, because I had a level of how I wanted to treat those patients and the journey I wanted to take them on, which was an extension of me, which is just those really high, deeply, deeply caring standards. And it was like a family. My team were a family, and patients used to feel that it was like coming into a family, and we always had their back, and carried that through. So yeah, you're right. There was always a, and then of course with all the work I went on to do with lasers, my purpose is impact, and of course then I was able to create that by doing this
yeah.
pioneering type of treatment. So yeah, but then
That's
people
how
ask,
we met. We met
yeah,
over laser.
exactly. But people ask me, were you not like upset when you let it go? And it's like I was ready.
Mm.
So
It
there
was
is
just
that
time.
element as well, it's like, yes, it might be your purpose, but I'm always kind of mindful of your purpose runs through you. Purpose is about living your life with purpose, that every day is purposeful, full of purpose, and not attaching it. Because when you do attach it, you attach it to your label of your work, you attach it to your child or your partner or your friends. It can become, what happens when one of those things go wrong, you come tumbling down. So purpose really needs to resonate within you. And then, like I said, you pull in the whys, you peel the onion till you get to the middle. Well, if you ask the whys for any of those things, the relationship, the work, the family, the things you've achieved, and you peel off the layers with the why, then you'll usually still get to the same middle bit, which is the purpose, right? It just,
Mm.
it radiates in every part of you, or it should ideally, and certainly in brand and marketing, if you want to
Yeah,
be successful, that's what you need to do, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds so easy to do, but it really isn't, because you only have to look at the marketing. And I work with so many different practices, and they really haven't quite figured that out yet. They're still playing it incredibly safe. And yeah, maybe it's fear, maybe it's this is how it's always been done. And I'm a clinician. I've spent years at med school, and no one told me how to market, how to do brand, how to do any of this. Some of them have figured it out along the line and gone, actually, no, they've extended that knowledge, and they've been curious and leaned in. But others, when you're in healthcare, I've learned that, I want to provide for my community. That's just what I want to do. I'm a doctor. That's what I want to do. And I don't want to get kind of distracted by all the other stuff. I just want to do what I want to do. But when you're running a business, especially as our industry is getting more and more privatized, this is going to be something that's going to come up all the time.
yeah,
It's not going away. And those that
yeah,
kind of, maybe at the end of their career can probably eke it out until they have their exit strategy.
yeah,
But those that are like young Gen X, millennials, Gen Z that are qualifying, this is going to be the norm. They're going to have to figure this out. And it's definitely not going to be added to any of the curriculums, I'm sure, at undergrad. So they're going
Well,
to
I'm
have to
still,
learn this
I'm
when
on
they
a
get
mission.
into the industry.
I'm on a mission, aren't I? I'm definitely on a mission about needing to bring in those leadership skills and
Yeah.
business skills.
Yeah.
It's a big gap, and they're just like letting these, these newly qualified clinicians like into a field of emptiness and just saying, may the odds be in your favor, essentially.
Yeah, it's really tough. So, Bev, do you want to ask our final question?
Yeah, I mean, we've touched upon so many points there. It feels like we've gone through the whole nail it system there without naming the nail it system. But Anna, go on, the the nail it pillars. There's 6 pillars. Which one resonates with you and why?
Oh, well, I'm going to be a bit sneaky and I'm going to say 2 actually resonate with me mostly. And the first is attitude, because personally for me, attitude is everything.
Yeah,
If it's a powers that mindset, it influences your choices, all of those things. And there's an emotional resilience in there as well with attitude. So for me, it was an obvious choice. But my second actually was limitless. And I think both go in hand in hand. It's about like when that fear is setting in and you have that imposter syndrome or whatever it is, that bit that sits at your heart that just feels like that, someone's squeezing your chest, that self-doubt that's sinking in. This is where you can actually use that energy you're feeling and make it into excitement, not fear, which is that limitlessness that you want. But you have to learn to take that feeling that gets you when your feet are just hovering off the ground and you don't quite feel safe. That's not fear. That's where you should be. That's where growth happens, and that's where your limitless can start to really, when you can reach that self-actualization. But you need to have that fear, but treat it as excitement. Turn
yeah.
that energy into excitement, not fear. Lean into it. So those 2 for me were the ones that spoke to me out of the nail it.
Yay, I love
Yeah,
that. I mean, they're
Oh,
all of them are so important, right? That's why
they're
the pillars.
amazing.
I love
Yes,
this.
but limitless, exactly. So it is about, so that's the boundless beliefs model. So it's all about really setting yourself free,
Yeah,
because that's what it does. And exactly as you said, the growth happens when you're out of your comfort zone. And if you just stay the same, guess what? The universe is expanding, in which case all that's going to happen is you're going to shrink.
yeah,
And you'll realize it eventually. So boundless beliefs method. So it's about understanding what you're recognizing your beliefs, creating more empowering ones, putting light, shining the light on it. So limelight, is it true or is it truth? What are you really telling yourself, and what's a universal truth? Then about instilling. So it's all about habit change. So needing to, all of our beliefs are habits. So we need to change who we are. So we need to change the habit of being ourselves. So how do you do those mindset tricks to change those beliefs? And then exactly, you mentioned fear there. So it's about becoming fearless and managing stress and understanding what a stress mindset is, and all the studies and literature that actually show if we think stress is bad for us, then it will be bad for us, as opposed to the existence of stress. And then the attitude pillar is the sustainable success toolkit, and that is all about self-talk, about smile. I call it smile, but about that positivity, optimism, pessimism. It's about strength, so all those aspects of resilience and grit and moving forward. And then the last one is about solutions. So we have having a growth mindset, problem solving, and being very much solution focused. I mean, it's massive. I mean, the whole system is 38 components, but you just work on one little thing at a time. And attitude, they say it's 20% knowledge, 80% attitude. That's what drives you through
always.
in life.
Wow.
Absolutely. Oh, Anna, you have been an incredible guest. Thank you so much. So much depth to what you've said. It's something
Yeah.
really,
Oh,
really
we only scratched the
different.
surface, I'm
I
telling you.
know, I know. And something just so different to what you usually hear when you talk about marketing and brand. And I think people generally accept, they get that, okay, brand isn't just your logo. But the way you've gone to the depth of really understanding the why, and having to overcome hurdles, but get yourself through. And I love all the generational stuff, just so fascinating.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks for being an incredible guest. And I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, I know we're meeting soon, so thank you so much. It's been an honor to speak to you guys tonight. I've had a great time, and thank you for indulging me in my passion on brand and performance marketing and emotional leg marketing. I've had a great time. Thanks, guys.
And we'll obviously put it in the show notes, but how can people find you, get hold of you?
So they can go to the My Smile Media website, or they can find me on Instagram, which is Anna My Smile Media. So you'll find me on there as well, and you can just reach out either way. Quite easy, quite accessible.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna.
Wow, Bavin.
Yeah,
Words of wisdom.
another great person to speak to. Yeah, I mean, I think Anna's great because she also sums up what we do with clients. I guess when we first start with it, is finding out their why. It's an awareness of themselves, their end goal, and I think we didn't actually speak about it, but it's going back to the wheel of life and finding out where people are, what people want from their lives, not just from a business point of view, a personal point of view, spiritual point of view, financial point of view, and then it all sort of sometimes it unpeels, just like Anna described the peeling of the onion and coming back down to there's usually a central purpose that people don't actually realize until they actually do these exercises to figure out why they do what they do every day, and then how they utilize that as make that into a superpower, I guess. But also it's just doing that life audit. I think she said the word audit quite a few times, and it's true. That's what you need to do. You need to do an audit. You need to figure out, what's going wrong, and only then you can see the future, right?
Yeah, because sometimes it's just the niggle, isn't it? The kind of you don't feel quite fulfilled, and even on the surface, everything might seem to be working out, but they just something is missing, and that's often actually when you do get a bit older.
Yeah.
When you're young and you're in the hustle bustle and the excitement, it doesn't happen. But you start to get a little bit older, and if you haven't worked out that bit, that's where everything starts to wobble because the foundations are not there as you come tumbling down.
Also, the importance of integrity and authenticity. That's the word.
That was it. What pillar did you think she was going to choose?
I thought it was going to be integrity.
See, we're not doing very well lately, are we? Well, they're all important.
Yeah, they are. That's the one, yeah.
Okay, well, that's all that we've got time for.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. Please do share, tell your friends about us, hit the subscribe button, leave us a review. It all helps. You never know who's reading, who's listening, and how much it could benefit somebody else. But thank you so much, and bye-bye for now.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Nail It podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a 5-star review. And if you'd like to feature as one of our guests, or you're ready to nail it, then check out our events, programs, and educational courses by visiting nailitindentistry.com.